What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shuggy from Picards Media, and today we are back with Star Trek Picard. Another stunning episode, absolutely on the edge of my seat the entire time. Very exciting. We got a lot to break into. Not a lot of answers. I was expecting answers in this episode, but they're pushing that to next week. They left us with the cliffhanger. We got a big mystery regarding Jack to deal with next week. I thought we were getting it now. We're not getting it now, but instead we got one of the more exciting episodes, a very emotionally resonant episode, and it definitely had a satisfying conclusion. So we're going to break into this episode, but if you're liking these breakdowns, I please ask you to subscribe and tell me your opinions in the comment section down below, and hit me with the like that helps with the algorithm and all that. But let's just jump straight into the breakdown. Now, I love this starting image, and I didn't even realize until I was getting ready to start this review that, of course, Vadic, I'm going to say it right this time, Vadic, because it's our last episode. Might as well say it right. Vadic starts the episode the same way she ends the episode, okay? She starts the episode here in this image. It's up above the bridge. There's this spherical thing that's reflecting light, and she is in this image lost in space, and this is where she ends up at the end of the episode in very satisfying fashion, for me anyways. So I love that we bookend the front and the back of this episode with Vadic in space. I think it's really smart directing. There's a lot of smart directing in these last couple episodes here, and this whole season so far. Amazing episode. Most of this episode revolves around dialogue, and yet it's so riveting and exciting. You know, you don't need phasers pew, 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 shoot it off. You don't need crazy fight scenes to get us excited, okay? This is what we want. We want stuff like this. So I love the way we start this episode. It kind of picks up with, we got Vadic's backstory last week where she was talking about a symphony of sounds that she heard while she was kidnapped by the Federation, and they were doing experiments on her and her liquid brethren. And those experiments involved sounds that there was the gurney squeaking, the screams of her friends, and the bubbling, and of course the whistling of the body that she ended up taking. So we pick up with that concept, except it's kind of like a reverse of that, where she's talking about the senses that us solids, as they call us, rely on, such as light and sound, things that liquid form people don't necessarily need to use as much. So she's talking about turning out the lights will take their eyes, turning out the communication, so taking away their sound. And I thought it was a really brilliant way to start, really smart writing. And of course, she just oozes personality. Like, there's so much eccentricity in this character. I really love how just she holds herself, and the childish glee that she has, and just the condescension as well. But here she is doing her symphony pose, the conductor pose. Thought it was absolutely brilliant way to start the episode. And she's just reveling in the power that she has in this moment. And in this moment, we have our officers lined up. And of course, you know, the captain, I forgot to mention in my last week's breakdown, but I was worried that the captain was going to be dead or gravely injured, but he's just got smacked in the face. He's okay. So I was happy to see that. But they're all lined up, and they're all under threat. And in this moment, Jack realizes that he can, of course, use his newfound abilities to see what's going on outside the ship. So he uses his abilities. We got this cool fisheye lens thing. He takes over the body of somebody outside. We see what's going on out there. Somebody's terrified. We see dead bodies. It's very bleak, dark images. And then the person he's taken over gets either injured or killed. We don't exactly know for sure, but he's very taken aback by it. And yeah, it's just a brilliant setup for the episode. Really sets. I thought we got to the lowest point we could get back in what was that, episode 4? No, it's a pretty bleak start to the episode, and I was like, wow, this is gonna be pretty dark. And I just knew that we had to get a real conclusion with Vadic by the end of this episode. So even the episode's called Surrender. We learned that meaning later applies to Data, but it really feels like it applies to what's going on in this episode in general. So I really love that opening. I think it starts the episode off a very exciting way. So here we cut to the Vadic ship, the Shrike, I think it's called. And this is where Will and Deanna are being held prisoner. Now, the nitpicker in me is, of course, thinking, in reality, if you have prisoners, and especially if they're husband and wife, you're not going to put them in the same cell, and you don't want them to communicate, because if you're doing psychological warfare games, you're not going to put them in the same cell together. But and even though I guess they already gave up the information that Vadic needed. That's how she's able to take over the ship. She's got the override code, so which makes perfect sense to me. But that seems to be the only function that Will and Deanna really had being captured, was to make that happen. So I mean, I understand it gives us a whole plot for this episode, so I'm willing to look past that. And I love these scenes too. They're so emotionally resonant, especially later on. So it's a powerful scene. I love it, but the nitpicker in me has to say it doesn't really make sense because even though they already gave up what they wanted, there's still no reason for these people that hate the Federation to give them a reward by putting them back together again. So, it's a small nitpick. Really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But I really like the scene. They're breaking the ice with some humor. And, she's talking about how he's changed and he seems to have aged, and how they're different from the last time they've seen each other, and how he can still take a punch barely. It's a comical scene. It's a nice little bit of levity, despite everything else going on. So it was nice to see that scene as well. And here we got a scene where the Captain Shaw is talking to Seven of Nine about how she should have blown up the lift, basically chastising her for not sacrificing him, because he was in the lift with Vadic. And I don't remember that. Maybe it just happened so quick that I didn't pick up on it. But he must have ordered her to turbo the lift, or get rid of the turbo lift, and she refused to do it because she didn't want to sacrifice his life. And then this is the final moment where she makes a stand for herself and says, that her name is Seven of Nine, stop calling me Hanson, type of thing. And he keeps doing it. So I actually love that, I love the Shaw character, and Seven of Nine has been great in this too. But again, nitpicker in me, gotta bring it up. The changelings wouldn't let their prisoners talk, and they would have heard it, and then they would have had some type of consequences, whether that's a punch to the face or whatever. You don't let your prisoners talk, and because if you let them talk, they might be planning behind your back. So that's not something you do. But then I was thinking, like, okay, maybe they're changelings, right? So they don't necessarily know the ways of solids as well. But I don't know. At the end of the day, you wouldn't want your prisoners talking, and Vadic is talking the whole time, so she obviously knows. So here we are discussing our next plan. Vadic is saying that she's going to kill one of the officers every 10 minutes. And actually, I don't know if that happens yet or later, but this is Jack revealing to his parents his ability to take over somebody's body. And Sydney's here to corroborate. They weren't going to believe it. They were thinking he was hallucinating. But Sydney's able to say, yeah, he can do it. He did it to me. I felt it. And that's why she is here in this scene. And it feels very important. So yeah, now we're getting I think that did happen. The sacrificing somebody every 10 minutes. And now he's taking over this guy's body, whose name I don't remember, but he does say it in this episode. And he plugs in the code and is right about to accept it when Vadic notices him and stops it from happening. And the only thing that bothered me about this part was Seven of Nine looks over at him. It's like, if she saw out of the corner of his eye that he was doing something, I think Seven of Nine would know, okay, I'm not going to look over there because that will draw attention to the fact that he's doing something. And she would be able to say, okay, he's doing something that's probably going to help, so I'm going to just not look over there, not draw attention. If anything, if she noticed that happening, she would want to take away Vadic's attention from that happening. So again, nitpicking. It's your boy Shooky, after all. Shook Earth Media, that's what we do here. We nitpick, okay? But that doesn't mean that I don't love this episode. I love this episode, okay? So he he's about to plug in the code. She catches him just in time, and then she's speaking directly to Jack because she knows his true nature. She knows that he has this ability. She even brings up the red door and everything. She knows everything. How does she know all this? I guess we'll find out in the next episode. But it's really bringing this mystery to a head, man. I need to know what is going on with Jack once for all. We've been setting this up. It's got to be satisfying next week, or this whole season might not feel as great in retrospect. If it's not, it has to be a great reveal. I think that they have something up their sleeve. I've heard the Wraith mentioned. I've heard the Borg mentioned. I've had a couple other theories in my comments section. So I'm really excited to see what's going on with that. And one other nitpick I'm going to bring up here, because might as well anytime. She's spending this whole episode looking for Jack. She needs to know where Jack is, okay? And one problem I have with that is I know from watching Next Gen that there's an AI on the ship. All she has to do is ask the computer, "Hey computer, where's Jack Crusher? He's in this room." I don't know if they explained why the computer can't answer that, but that's one problem. That's a huge problem with this episode. It doesn't bother me because I love the episode so much, but it is definitely worth mentioning. So again, a nitpick, but also, you know, I guess the changelings don't have to hear as much, but the Vadic clearly can hear people 'cause she's having conversations. So they can hear in their solid form. So can't they just go room by room and listen for them? I mean, they're talking. They're not, when they talk in these scenes, they're not worried about being heard. That's another thing. Maybe, I know that they can track the enemies. They got that last episode. I forgot to mention that in my review as well. But we know that they can track the enemies. Maybe that would make sense to say, oh, they're over here. But maybe she just wants to play the power game. She wants to stay in one place. And she's like, no, let's not waste any resources. That would split us up. There might be tactics behind it. But at the same time, I'm like, why does she ask the computer? Okay, so that's enough nitpicking, because I really do love this episode. The tension here is really palpable. And she's like, who is she going to attack? There's this one ensign here who is very emotional and is really, really scared. The other guy is really very stern, and he says, I am Starfleet. I can't give up the information that you need. And I love that moment. And yeah, it was really sad to see somebody else get murdered. So here we got one of the best scenes in the episode, I think. And this is kind of putting a cap on the storyline about their son dying. And Will here is talking about how he needed to get away from her, from his wife Deanna, because she has these abilities as a betazoid where she can sort of feel people's emotions. And she was actively trying to numb him. Will mentioned in an earlier episode that he couldn't feel anything, and he hated that he couldn't feel anything. We find the true meaning of that in this scene, which is that she was taking away his pain, trying to carry his suffering for him. And he brings up how the pain he felt was the last connection that he had to his son. And it's like, it's getting me emotional right now, because like, that's something we can all relate to, and it's such a very cathartic, moving scene. I absolutely love it. And then at the end, they talk about how they actually hate their house, which I didn't actually watch those episodes of early episodes of Picard, but I read reviews about it, but I never watched the episode myself, so I can't really say whether it's an Easter egg or not, the stuff they're mentioning. But they're mentioning that they don't like the two-headed woodpeckers, and I thought it was really funny. You know, we had that really cathartic, moving part, and then we had a humorous part, and then we got a really satisfying rescue here with Wharf coming in at the last minute. And I love Wharf in this episode. He's amazing. He doesn't have many lines in this episode, but every single one is a banger, dude. And he's my favorite character in Star Trek in general, so I just love seeing Wharf all the time. The only, again, nitpicking, okay, but the only thing here is it doesn't feel earned. You know, Will being captured and Deanna being captured has been this the cliffhanger, and here it snap your fingers and it happens. Now I lost track of Wharf last episode, so I guess it makes sense. You know, he kind of disappeared after the Daystrom station thing, and it makes sense that they would be off. Him and Rafi would be trying to find them, but yeah, it just doesn't feel as earned as it could have, because you know he's just here. You know, Deus Ex Machina. but it does make sense. So I'm not gonna complain that it doesn't make sense or something. But I really love Worf's part where he's talking about how much her counseling meant to him, and how he has carried that with him into battle. And Will is saying how it's inappropriate. It feels inappropriate because he's like, I've counted the days and all that. So that was a really funny scene as well. I really, really love that. Yeah, I think if I had to single one scene out as the best one, it's got to be that scene back there. Despite my nitpicking, okay? So here we are with Data, and we need Data to solve the problem. We need Data, the supercomputer, to take the ship back. So we have to lift that partition. Consequences be damned. There's nothing they can really do. It's their last-ditch effort to retake the ship. So now we're inside Data's mind. And I thought this was a brilliant way to illustrate this. Because otherwise it would have felt like more Deus Ex Machina, right? Like it would have just been snap your fingers, Data's back. They have to have some sort of way to illustrate that, and I think they did a great job here, having Brett Spiner in both of his forms in one scene. I think was really great, and I love Data talking about his memories and how pretty much all of us, including all of us humans and all of us synthetics, we all are defined by our past, by our memories, the things that matter to us. And that is what is the most important thing in life, is creating memories. So I thought it was a really brilliant scene. And I already knew the gambit right away, that he was giving away his memories to Lore so that Lore would become him. Because if they are the same person and they each, and he gets Data's memories, he's going to become Data to a certain degree. So I think it's a really brilliant way to illustrate the fusion. And they do a good job of making you think that Data is going to die there again. But of course, I mean, I think we all know, like, there's no point in bringing Data back a third time if he's just going to die right away. So, I don't know how successful a gambit that really is. But here we found Picard's body, and it turns out that they were looking for something in his brain to do with the syndrome, which I forget, Irrimatic or something like that. Irrimatic syndrome that we've been talking about that Jack supposedly has as well. So that's what they're really after. In another circumstance, if they had more resources, they would try to take Picard's body. But of course, the changelings already have what they need. So I really like Worf's lines in this part where he's like, "Don't worry, it's not really him. It's just the shell that he used to have," which of course is Klingon philosophy. They think that as soon as a body dies, they don't view it as like a sacred thing like us humans do. We bury our dead, or we have cremation or whatever rite that we have. Klingons don't have that. They just see, oh, it's a dead body, get rid of it. It's whatever. They don't care. And that was one thing in Discovery that was really weird, was the first episode had like a whole funeral thing with the Klingons, which, there was lore behind that. They made it make sense, but it just felt contradictory to the Klingons. So I love seeing that there. Like I said, not a lot of lines, but they're all bangers. So now the paths are converging, and our side crew of Wharf and Riker, and they're all coming back to the ship, but they need to buy Data some time. So Jack makes it look like he's surrendering, but he brings what looks like a bomb to the ship, and he threatens to kill himself, basically. So I think that's genius too. It could have just been a phaser, right? I don't know why. I mean, I guess the bomb's more dramatic, and he ends up using it later. So there's a use for this item, but at the same time, I guess it makes him look a little bit more crazy, but it could have just been putting a phaser to his head, right? I don't know, but it's less dramatic that way. I love how he comes off of the elevator with his hands behind his back. It gives him this calm exterior. If you have your hands behind your back, that's at ease, right? So he makes it look like he's at ease, but really, it's just a threat that he's making. So I really like that. And I'd also like how Vadic threatens to take away oxygen, but of course we know she's not going to do that because, otherwise Crusher would be dead, and that's all that she is here for. So that wouldn't actually work. And we talked about the Data stuff. I really loved him bringing up Tasha Yar. That was a really powerful part. That was really crucial to the episode Measure of a Man, where it's kind of determined in court that synthetic life forms count as life forms. And one of the things that they use as evidence, Picard was his lawyer basically. One of the things that he used as evidence was this statue here. And that was one of the standout episodes, and the fact that he held this memory of a fallen friend with such high regard, and it meant something to him, was a part of what made them realize that it was actual life, So I really love that part. So, and just another nitpick, I'm going to say, I can't help but feel like the officers here, and they all got, I'm assuming their phasers were taken at some point, but I can't help but feel like they could take on all the changelings here. I don't know. But maybe that's me nitpicking again. But, I love this scene with Jack because, really he's here to buy time, but what he really wants, his actual motivation, is answers. And she's not giving him any answers. She won't budge an inch. She's just toying with him. And it's so entertaining to watch. I'm going to miss having Vadic around, honestly. Like, I'm really happy with how this ended. But at the same time, wow, what a villain, man. I love her. She's so good. One of my best Star Trek villains I think I've ever seen, So she's talking about the Red Door. She knows about the Red Door. And all this is intercut at the same time. We're talking about Data and his memories. He has the cat, Spot. I love seeing that come back. And he says that the cat is what taught him to love, which I think was really nice. And then he fades away, it seems, gives the cat over to Lore, and then all of a sudden he's back because his memories made Lore a part of him. So I really loved how that turned out, and it was really satisfying to have Data back after so long. And he's died twice. We need to have Data in the show, but it's a new form of Data, and they break into that later, some of the differences. I thought that was really great. So now where the tide is turning, they have a plan. They have a force shield thing. Data's got the ship back. And I forget, I don't really know what the button thing does, but I'm sure if I rewatch it, I can find that out. But we got a fight scene here with Rafi in the corridor. And I mean, honestly, to me, like, having swords just feels kind of silly. Because, like, especially because, Wharf is a Klingon. They use swords in combat, and that makes a little bit more sense. But just they have phasers though. Why wouldn't she? Isn't it easier to use a phaser? I don't know. Why is she do? I mean, it's more dramatic. It looks more fun, but I don't know. The sword fighting doesn't really work for me. But that, again, it's a nitpick. It's a nitpick. Does it really hurt my enjoyment? No, not really. It was fun to see. So we blow up or not blow up, but we open up the visor. I don't know what you would call that. Windshield. It's not a windshield because there's no wind. I don't know what you would call it. They open up the windshield, for lack of a better word. Vadic flies out along with some of her cronies, and then she freezes because she's a liquid, and then crashes into the ship, and then explodes as like solid ice. So I love the visuals here. I thought it was great, and it's a satisfying end for her character. And I don't know, maybe she's not dead because I don't know. We'll see. She has to be dead, right? I guess. And then they get to blow up the ship. 7 of 9 gives the order. Shaw lets her have it. And I love seeing the determination of everybody on the crew, despite how shaken they were, they're just right back into the action, So that's another thing about Starfleet. Like, they always rise to the moment. So I absolutely love that in this episode. And now we got Deanna coming onto the ship for the first time, and she is struck with the darkness that is within the ship, which of course is within Jack. And here we're back with Data. Data kind of gets to say a real hello to everybody for once. And a great scene with Data and Geordi talking about how he's slightly different. He can use contractions now. He was swearing earlier, which that part felt a little weird. I've already talked about how I would prefer they didn't swear in Star Trek shows, but I've accepted it at this point. But hearing Data say it was extra weird. But now that it's a new version of Data, maybe that makes sense. So I'm willing to give him that one. And it's just really satisfying to see these two kind of make up after all these years. And yeah, it was just a beautiful scene. Nothing else really to say about it. And then we get a final conference with Data getting to see everybody, and pretty much the whole crew is back together. That's the point of this scene, and they get sentimental a little bit. And Deanna says, Beverly, your advice meant a lot to me, and I was thinking of you even when you weren't around. That was really meaningful. And then we got the comic relief with Wharf saying that he's slaughtered many enemies and almost mailed their heads. I love that stuff, dude. Every line was a banger. I love it. And just as a Wharf fan, I'm so happy with this episode. So they're kind of talking about the next episode, setting it up. It's Frontier Day. There's something going on. It has to do with Jack. That's what we end up with on this scene. And then we get Deanna kind of in a room that's very reminiscent of the room that she had on Next Generation. She's playing the counselor role, and she is going to face Jack's fears. And I like right at the beginning, Jack throws in a line, I forget exactly what it was, but he's basically insinuating that Deanna does these counselor things almost as a deflection to avoid looking inward. So it's like he has some sort of inside perspective on Deanna herself, which I think is really a smart move. I don't know if that has to do with his powers and being able to kind of read people's minds a little bit, but it's very insightful for somebody who just met her. You know what I mean? So I think that was really a really good line. And then we're facing this fear of the red door. What is the red door? And then we got some great shots of this door, really cinematic, dramatic looking shots, close-ups. We got the light streaming through the keyhole. We got the faded texture of the door. They really spent a lot of time making this door. So I really think that that's a great image to end on. And I can't wait to find out what happens next. What is this? What is the fucking door? Okay, can we find out what the fucking door is? It's a little bit frustrating at this point. But anyways, that's my review of this episode. I'm really excited about it. I hope you guys are too. Let me know your opinions in the comment section down below. Am I nitpicking too much? Let me know. Or did I not nitpick enough? Do you have other nitpicks to point out? I would love to hear it in the comment section. But with that, it's been your boy Shuggy. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.